So that is a very important question. There are many people like yourself who grow up Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, that go to schools that talk about the importance of learning Torah, yeshivas, Beis Yaakovs, etc. And rather than coming out with a love for Torah and learning Torah, they actually come out with, I would say, fear and anxiety, but the technical word is trauma around learning Torah. Because rather than it being taught in a beautiful, rich, sweet way, v'harev na, it's taught with a sledgehammer. This is the most important thing. You have to do this all the time. Everybody has to do this all the time. You have to learn only this and in this way all the time. And Tamar, I'm sorry to hear about that anxiety that you suffer, but you should know you're not the only one. I wasn't brought up religious. I only spent about 5 years in yeshiva from, only strictly learning full time from the time I spent many years learning after, but, in a yeshiva environment before I got married. And I already have trauma just from 5 years. So I can't tell you, I can't understand what it would be like by so many people who went to those yeshivas in Chadar and Beis Yaakov. Baruch Hashem, my kids don't have that and they love learning Torah. And that means it can be done and there's many good places. But what you're saying is very, very common. And that's why I wanted to address this as part of this discussion. Now, I'm going to answer your question in a general way and not necessarily deal specifically with your issue and how to resolve it. But let's answer the questions as sensitively as we can. So first, isn't it that Torah itself is supposed to transform us? Because this is something we all heard in yeshiva and we all heard in shul. And there's many, many voices that say, we don't need to meditate. We don't need to have therapy. Learning Torah is enough. Right, hands up if you've ever heard that in yeshiva, you ever heard that in school, you have, okay? So all the fun people have heard that. So I want to tell you something. There's no source for that idea at all. It's one big, fat, delusional, insane lie. Just because everyone says it doesn't make it true. And I'm sure there's people I just got very upset by saying that. But I think by the time I'm done talking this out, there's really nothing to disagree with. The Hasidic masters don't say learning Torah is enough. They say we have to work on our midas. They say the purpose of coming into this life is to work through our emotional blocks and issues. Right? To work through the clippers, to work through our taiva, gaiva, kina, kavod, etc. The Balei Musa, whether it's the Ramchal, who writes a whole book of Mesilas Yesharim about the importance of awareness, of becoming aware of what's wrong with us, of working to refine that, etc. The Vilna Gaon wrote that Tikkun Amidas is the purpose of life, right? The Musa approach of Yisrael Salanta, who screamed, right? The Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon, who screamed that we have to have a whole movements where we learn to work on ourselves, and he had a whole meditational process which was called his pilus, where we have to even not just have a base measures for learning Torah, but actually have a special room, a special house, a special place in each city where people go to for an hour a day, and they sit there and they bring up their emotional blocks and they work through them and release them through repeating over and over again certain lines and certain ideas. In the Rishonim, Achronim, if you go to the root of all Kabbalah, if you see Rav Chaim Vital, his introduction to Shari Kedusha, he says, why is working on our midas not one of the Tarek mitzvahs? Of course, there's many sources that say it is halakha b'dracha, it is one of the 630 mitzvahs, but he says it's not. He says it's not because it's less important, he says because it's more important. Because we can't do mitzvahs and we can't learn Torah, if our ego, if our fear, if our anger, if our lust gets in the way, right? It's more important because it comes before derech eretz kadma the Torah. The Talmud itself says extensively in multiple places that Torah can be an elixir of life or elixir of death, depending on if we're learning with a pure heart and a pure mind, right, or not. So this idea that Torah is enough is baseless, and no source holds that to be true. So there's two things left to understand. Number one is, where did we even get that from? The answer to that question is what Rabbi Nachman's teaching you. It's exactly what we're doing these classes for. The answer to that question is because what our sages taught us is that Torah can be miraculously transformative. Torah is not just learning or acquiring information. Torah has an energetic power that lifts our consciousness and mind and transforms our life. But, what's the but, Tamar? It has to be done in the right state. It has to be run with the right kavana. It has to be done with the right intention. It has to be done, and some people don't get this, and I get this sounds self-contradictory, it has to be done with good midas and an open heart. It has to be done with purity, with kedusha, tahara. If Rav Chaim Kanievsky says you have to go in the mikveh every morning, you have to purify yourself, so you're learning Torah in higher consciousness. So one of the problems in Torah, like any religion, is it's such a vast sea of wisdom that people with agendas, and sometimes agendas, unfortunately, is their own blocked heart, is they choose to extract one element out of context of the rest and then hammer that home, forgetting all the rest of the context and all the rest of the meaning and all the rest of the depth. Torah is important. We should all be learning Torah all the time, and everyone that learns Torah is connected to Hashem, and Hashem blesses them. But there's lots of people that learn Torah, aren't happy, aren't blessed, who get sicker, who use Torah in really disgusting, destructive ways, etc., in unhealthy ways, right? So that's what the Torah, the Talmud, Chassidus, Kabbalah, Mussar, Rishonim, Achronim, Gaonim, that's the point they all speak to. Yes, Torah transforms you, but you have to be doing the work. You have to be doing the emotional work. You have to be purifying your midas. You have to be meditating. So the concept of inner emotional work and healing and release, tikkun midas, and the concept of meditation, and the concept of called hisbodedus or hisbodedus, and the concept of prayer, and the concept of maisim tovim, doing chesed, and living with values are all a part of the Torah transformation process. And then when a person is living bracha's life with Yeshiva Das, with Devekas, with his kashrus tzaddikim, and then being aware, as you know, this is the machlokas, the Nefesh HaChaim, the Baal Shem Tov, just learning the Torah itself is enough. Even the Nefesh HaChaim doesn't mean that the way some Litvaks like to quote it, and there's many sources that Nefesh HaChaim talks about deeper consciousness through it. But the Baal Shem Tov would say, by the way, that you should stop a couple times an hour while you're learning Torah and re-strengthen your own Devekas. Right? Come back to your consciousness. Come back to your light. Release any emotional triggers. Release, you're arguing with your kavusa. Stop and get your ego out of your argument. Stop and actually release that in real time, and then go again. So he's saying that you have to keep cleansing and then learning Torah, cleansing and then learning Torah. This is consistent with all the paths of Pnimis in our tradition. So Tamar, the tragedy is that when people say Torah transforms you because it's divine, that's true. But we have to understand the full system to make that activated. And if you teach the teaching without the system and without the internal understanding, then what you get is trauma, right? It's kind of like saying, here's Jung and he has a healing power. So I want you to take a picture frame of Jung and I want you to bang your head against it for, an hour a day for 10 years. So, Jung is a wonderful healer, but banging your head against Jung is not how to use Jung, if you understand what I'm saying. It sounds really funny, but that's what Rabbi Nachman was teaching us. The Torah is like a stick, right? So it's a stick that you can beat against your Yetzer Hara and bring that light down and heal it and release it. Or it's a stick you can just beat yourself up with. I'm not holy enough, I'm not religious enough, I'm not learning enough, right? And this is part of the issue, it's part of the tragedy.